Hello there.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Bacta podcast, part 2. If you haven't listened to the first part of this episode, we go over episode 7. This is, we're launching straight into episode 8. Like we mentioned before, congratulations to Cam, our lovely co-host, who is now the father of a beautiful baby daughter. And we're still waiting on that midichlorian count, but...
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
Not come in yet.
Not come in yet. We'll be...
They're still counting.
They're still counting. Yeah, absolutely. One by one. But we miss you, Cam, and congratulations again.
Indeed.
And we're here to talk about the finale of the 8-part series, AHSOKA on Disney+. I can't believe we're here already. It feels like we kind of blinked and it's all been over. But at the same time, it does feel like we've come a long way.
We certainly have. It's been a journey, you know. They were 8 episodes. They've covered a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of things. I mean, if you told me we would be seeing live-action Clone Wars stuff in this show, I'm not sure I would have believed you quite at first.
I know.
That was not something that I thought was even on the table for this.
Yes.
And there's still more to unpack.
And Anakin's been in at least 3 episodes.
Way more than I thought.
Which is wild. It's like...
Way more than I thought.
If that was on your bingo board, cheers to you.
Well done. Good call. Good prediction.
Yeah, good prediction. You should get your midichlorians counted. All right. Here we go. Episode 8.
Episode 8, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord.
Narnia.
Anyway, we open on Thrawn. Oh my God. We open on Thrawn's crew finishing the load up of their material as Enoch updates Thrawn that they've located AHSOKA's ship. Thrawn orders him send out 2 TIE fighters to engage and slow them down. Because that's what they're trying to do at this point. Just delay. Elsbeth is confident that their victory is already at hand, but Thrawn warns, I've known a few Imperial officers, including myself, that have lost the battle with that mindset and refuses to lose to the heroics of a single Jedi again.
This is where I'm like, okay, respect Thrawn. I'm like, okay, I see you, dog. You're one of the smart ones. Like, we're, respect the enemy on some degrees. Like,
it is refreshing to see a villain learn from their mistakes in Star Wars. Usually the villains are so like mustache twirly and just like, I can't lose. I have you in checkmate.
Yes.
That it is like, okay, I've taken a couple L's. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to learn my opponent and try to re-navigate.
I've turned my L's into wins. It's not a loss unless you don't learn something.
2 L's,
two L's and then you
in the middle.
Watch the video version of the podcast to find out what we just did, because
So he then thanks the 3 great mothers who turn and offer Elsbeth a gift of the shadows. She agrees, and they give her a dark blessing that increases her abilities, turns her eyes black, and bringing the same dark marks forward on her face that the other Night Sisters and brothers sport. She's also gifted a special sword, the Blade of Talzin, a burning sword with a green flame, to assist her in the fight against the Jedi. Now, Talzin, that's a name that if you've watched some of the animated shows may be familiar to you, reminiscent of Great Mother Talzin, who was the leader of the Coven of the Night Sisters on Dathomir. Palpatine at one point had approached her to trade secrets about the dark side, promised to bring her on as her apprentice, but instead kidnapped her son, Maul. So she held a grudge, understandably, and plotted to get her revenge against the Sith, trying several times to have Dooku killed with her Night Sister assassins. And with another of her sons, Savage, ultimately unsuccessful. She sacrificed a great deal of her power to restore the mind and physical body of Maul, and he was recovered. But while she was in this weakened state, she was never really able to get back from that, and was eventually killed by the hands of General Grievous.
Watch Clone Wars, folks. It's a great show.
Check it out. There's a lot there. If you want to learn more about Talzin and especially more about the Night Sisters, a lot of Night Sister stuff.
I mean, I wore this shirt because there's so much Night Sister stuff in this episode. So
I was thinking it's really great to see the Night Sisters get their due in live action, and to see that part of the Star Wars lore coming onto the television screen.
Yeah.
And to see that aspect, I find them really interesting.
Yeah, I think it didn't come in like I don't want to say hammy way, but it felt like it was very kind of gradual, and they're not like going way out of left field on anything. And I hope, I knew about the Night Sisters before this, but I would hope that people who are watching are not like super confused. It feels like there's it's more of a kind of lean in as opposed to lean back situation with them. I was just laughing though because Morgan seems real scared the whole time she's about to get this gift. She's just looking there like, Sure, like, yeah.
I guess.
I guess, like, oh my god. But I mean, I have in my notes just underlined Night Sister stuff.
Night Sister stuff.
Because it's just, I mean, it's the whole episode, but especially here.
Yeah, it's great to see both with Thrawn and Elsbeth and the Night Sisters just kind of a different flavor of villain with
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, we're so used to obviously Palpatine being kind of like the main antagonist, or even like a Vader, you know, Kylo Ren being kind of similar in their struggle and conflict, you know, with the light side and the dark side. It's kind of cool to see these other people that are very different brand of evil.
Yeah. I also will say I did kind of giggle because I recently watched Scott Pilgrim.
Oh,
and
no
this
kidding.
sword is like 100%. You've earned the power of love, and then he pulls the sword out, and it's on fire. And I was like, "Oh no, it's the same sword."
It's the evil Scott Pilgrim sword. That's really funny.
I mean, it is way too close to the same thing.
That's really funny.
But it's great. Yeah, I was.
This, the sword of Scott Pilgrim, is your blessing. I did not make that connection. That is very funny.
It was great.
Back with the good guys, they are still rolling with the Noti, but inside the T6, Ezra is working on a brand new lightsaber. He refuses Hu Yang's help at first, but after Hu Yang schools him that, hey, I taught your master how to build a lightsaber, he allows him to help and even takes a crossguard very similar to his former master Kanan's build and ignites his new blue lightsaber. This was a touching moment for me, especially seeing Ezra pay tribute to his old master with his lightsaber build and color. And I think shows a lot of his growth as a character since the start of Rebels. What did you think about this, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. We've never seen somebody build a lightsaber on screen,
True.
which I was like, cool.
Yeah.
We didn't see any kyber crystals though. I was kind of like, what's first of all, where do you get one? Second of all, there's usually something emotional involved in the lightsaber making of just like
Generally.
this crystal was from so and so, and it's just like, no, we just push the button and boom. So that was kind of weird, especially Filoni being involved in the show. It's like you'd think there'd be some, I don't know. I was kind of like, huh, but also didn't really care that much. I did love the Hu Yang drop the Caleb.
That was really
on
neat.
there as well. It's supposed to Kanan.
That was a nice nod to his original name. And even when he called him Kanan at first, I was like, would you know him as that? You know, they would not have crossed paths while he was sporting that name, I would think. But I agree. I did have some questions about where the lightsaber came from, why he wasn't using one of the many lightsabers that was lining Ahsoka's wall in the training dojo.
Yeah.
I have to imagine if it came from anywhere, Hu Yang's just got like a drawer full of them or something. Not that that makes
like
it
flashlights, like a dad with his flashlights, just pulling them out.
Yeah, I got a couple D batteries around here somewhere. Let me just see what color you want.
How many lumens we thinking here?
But it was a bit. I think especially in the older days, yes, I agree. There was like a much more sacred bond between like the Jedi and their kyber crystal, and then like as things have progressed, like Sabine has just handed Ezra's like lightsaber, and she's using that. Luke is kind of handed Anakin's lightsaber, and it just has to deal with that. Of course, Rey is a similar thing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but even like when you know, Rey opens up that box and there's the lightsaber and it's like all the voices, you know, you start hearing all that, and like Luke getting Anakin's lightsaber. I mean, yes, it was handed to, but that's his father's lightsaber, and it's like, and I don't know, for me, just I'm a lightsaber nerd, and I think they're really cool and they have a lot of meaning associated with them. And I agree. You know, so I was just like, you can just build one in the back of the ship, like that's kind of wild. But I was you know,
Peter Parker, like Far From Home or whatever.
Yeah, the web slingers and stuff. Yeah. I was kind of hoping for a different color than blue, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
I was wondering if they can throw like a cool like yellow or something, like I don't know, different, or maybe I don't know. Purple, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. What I liked about it being blue, though, is that it felt very much his connection to Kanan.
Yeah, I didn't dislike the blue. For sure. Let me just say that. I was just kind of like, oh, cool color. No.
Yeah. But I to your point, I think it symbolizes for a lot of Jedi them coming into their own and making that leap from novice to adept or master when they have their own and a true appreciation, because that's kind of what happened to Luke. Like, he was sort of playing at Jedi for a lot of that original Star Wars trilogy until he built his own, which there was a cutscene from Return of the Jedi where he was building his green lightsaber on Tatooine. And obviously when he makes his own, that's when even Vader's just like, oh, you've constructed your own lightsaber. Your training is complete.
Yeah.
Is something that he says to him. And even Rey in the sequels, when she ignites her yellow lightsaber, is like, oh, she's no longer wearing the mantle of these other people. Like, she is stepping into her own.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
granted, Ezra has already constructed his own lightsaber, which he's then now foisted onto somebody else.
Yep.
And he's just like, no. Maybe he's just like, actually, that's kind of embarrassing. I don't really. That's shoddy
my
work.
Trainer lightsaber. I need a new model.
Yeah, that's kind of like you did your own thing to that, and like because Hu Yang says at one point earlier on in the series that Sabina's made her own changes to it, and he's just like, that's not that's for you now. But yes, I agree. Usually there's a connection between the Jedi and their Kyber crystal, and unless he was just like sorting through them until he found the right one.
I don't know.
He skimmed over.
We'll
it.
never know. We'll never know.
No, but Ezra asked Hu Yang a bit about the history between Ahsoka and Sabine, sensing some tension, and Hu Yang tells him that after the purge of Mandalore, Ahsoka worried Sabine would not be training as a Jedi for the right reasons, and her abilities with the Force could become dangerous. Does this make sense within the context of her learning Anakin's ultimate fate on Rebels? Do you think that she might be worried about what Sabine could end up doing?
Here's what I'll say about this. I liked this explanation a lot. I liked that it's like, Ahsoka's afraid of Sabine turning her power into a power of revenge.
Yeah.
Is that portrayed or earned at all in the entire show up until this point? No. There is no mention of revenge for her people. There is no mention of or glimmer of wanting power for the wrong reasons. It just, to me, I wish this was a through line throughout the show and not suddenly plopped on at the end. That's all. That's my only thing about it.
I agree, and there does seem to be a bit of. We never, and that's another thing that we never see between Ahsoka and Sabine is them truly hashing it out about why things didn't go well the first time.
I mean, there's a lot of things they don't hash out in the show, but that is absolutely one of them.
And we hear a hint of it kind of from Balin about this idea of like, her entire family wiped out, and of course somebody is going to want. Especially coming from where she comes from in her background, is going to want revenge for that. She's not been trained in the Jedi way of like, and even if you were, you would probably want revenge for that.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why there might be that pull. There might be that draw to the darker side. But you're right. We've not really seen enough of that woven throughout this story to make me feel like that's any sort of real threat.
I remember we had briefly touched on in one moment in the show about, is Sabine going to get tempted by the dark side at some point?
Yeah.
And didn't happen.
Not really. Not as far as, I think she faces maybe another temptation, which we'll get to later, that she has to make a difficult choice. And certainly her temptation to the dark side, I think, you can really only chalk it up to that moment where she decides to give Balin the map.
Yeah.
Which, as far as where that wound up, it was so short-lived that it never really felt like a true temptation.
Yeah,
it
was. He wasn't offering a path to the dark side. He was more offering like just a selfish choice. And they can be squares and rectangles, but it's just. Yeah, I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah. So outside of the ship, Ahsoka and Sabine have a bit of a catch-up on all that happened since they parted. Sabine is nervous that Ahsoka will judge her harshly for the decision she made and apologizes. But Ahsoka says, I had to make difficult decisions, of my own throughout my history. And usually the only person that really understood that was my master. And he always stood by me. And, I want to do that for my apprentice. So, water under the bridge, you'll do better next time, champ. What do you make of this moment? We were kind of just hinting at it a moment ago. Do you think Ahsoka should have handled this any differently?
I don't, actually. I feel like I really like this moment a lot for Ahsoka. It kind of gives me Ahsoka the White, kind of vibes like you were saying. She really just chooses to not make this a thing. She just is like, you made your choice. I understand why. I do think there were some like, she goes at one point like, well, if you hadn't made that choice, like you wouldn't have rescued Ezra, he wouldn't be here, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. He would be gone forever. And yet,
yeah,
if she had, Thrawn wouldn't be coming back. So it's like there's this kind of like they could gloss over it in a way that I'm like, okay, acceptance is one thing, right? Mm-hmm. Glossing over your mistakes, another thing. So I liked. I would say 70% of this moment, and the other 30 were just kind of putting to the side in the cabinet, and we're just not talking about the whole part over there. So that's, but I think also I did like this idea of Anakin always being a really supportive master to snips, as it were.
don't
But
have to
but there are some really big rifts that happen between them in Clone Wars, and so I feel like we're just kind of rewriting history a little bit. Don't you feel like? I mean, like there's a big falling out at some point.
They definitely have their disagreements. They don't always see completely eye to eye.
Yeah.
I do think that ultimately the moment that she's referring to is her choice to leave the order.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
And Anakin kind of coming to her and saying, like, if there's anybody that understands the choice you're making right now, I do,
Yeah.
but I need you.
Right,
And
right.
her just being like, sorry, dude, I gotta go.
I
I gotta go. And obviously that weighs into very much to her guilt and
Right.
what she has to move past with what happens to him. But I do agree with you that what I did not need is for Ahsoka to lay into Sabine here.
No.
I didn't need her to like chew her out or like admonish her. And I think if she had, it would have been more of probably what caused them to fall apart in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think her accepting that choice and accepting who Sabine is a big part of what will eventually make them a successful Master Padawan combo.
Right.
And accepting Sabine's differences from her, especially considering that she's coming from a very outside perspective of, she wasn't raised in the Jedi Temple from like the earliest that she can remember.
Yeah. She's got a totally bit different backstory than most.
But yeah, not to point for point say exactly what you said, but at the same time, it's just like, but you also have to acknowledge that we are in a very difficult position now. And we are, for some reason,
most difficult decision.
moving at a snail's pace with these crab people.
Yes. Oh my God.
Towards
I was
some
hoping you to get there.
unknown destination.
Crab people.
When we have there's so many things that make me question the decision making for why they are doing what they are doing. Like, why are they still with them? Like,
Why?
I could maybe understand it when it was just Sabine and Ezra of like, well, they're transporting us, like, we're hitchhiking as far as we can go to get as close to there, and then it's dangerous passage. We'll go off on our own. It doesn't really make sense to me once they have the T6 fighter at that point, or shuttle at that point.
Let's just put it in crawl mode and just like
Why
inch
they
our way towards the thing
get
that's
on
about
the
to
ship
oh my
and
God.
go. Because on the flip side of that, they are endangering the Noti.
100%.
Which comes to fruition here
Yeah.
as these two TIE fighters come in and start opening fire on them.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this situation wouldn't be the situation if they had just been like, hey, dudes, appreciate your help so far. Ezra, say your goodbyes. We got to get you home. Let's get a move on here.
This is my critique with the last episode too. It's like there's this moment of like catching up, and you're like, no, we gotta go. Like the Thrawn literally says she's losing time. That is the thing she needs most, and they seem to have no wherewithal about that. Like
I
it's
don't
just-
understand the
yeah,
crab people.
yeah.
I think they're cute. They are
Useless.
pretty useless and really
Great puppets.
Great puppets.
Really well done.
But outside of that, episode and a half of them hanging out together, I don't really see a reason for them to still be spending time together.
like maybe they had learned something, or they were injured, and like they had to take care of them.
Right, if they're just like, oh, we are going to a destination, and if we don't get your help, those bandits are going to come raid us.
Right.
Then I could be like, okay, they're caught in a situation where they can't morally leave them behind. But that's never said out loud or fleshed out to a point
Yep.
where it made really any sense to me for them to be continuing to hang out.
Yep.
Anyway.
I'm right there with you.
That's my big note in these last two
Your big
episodes.
notey of this?
That's my big notey in these last two episodes. If I don't
sorry.
understand
I'm
why
sorry.
this was happening, and from here on out, I had a lot of enjoyment of this episode, but that whole thing was just like, what is this? They move on to discussions about Sabine's training and how even though her skill with her lightsaber may be improving marginally, it is truly her trust in the Force that will result in her advancing in her Jedi training. Suddenly, they find themselves under attack by these TIE fighters. The T6 is hit and nearly falls on the Noti that they are escorting, but Ahsoka and Ezra hold it up using the Force while Sabine and Huyang patch it up as fast as possible. They get just enough engine power to be able to fly the T6 into the TIE fighters, destroying them, but the T6 is damaged and crashes in the distance. Ezra comments this is going to slow them down considerably. I mean, I don't know, but it will slow them down, I suppose. But AHSOKA has another plan.
Not any slower than they were already going, considering they're going
Again,
the speed of the Noti.
marginally. She, Sabine, and Ezra ride off on howlers while Hu Yang and the Noti stay behind to fix the T6. On the Chimera, which is the name of Thrawn's ship, he gets the update and tells his troops to get ready for a ground assault. They gather a battalion of night troopers who volunteer to stay behind for the fight and slow the Jedi down, and Elsbeth gives them a little extra sauce with some Night Sister stuff, a blessing to strengthen them. And this is interesting. What was interesting for me in this notion or in this scene is the idea that Elsbeth says, these people are all here. They agree to do it for you, Thrawn. And he's like, oh, no, it's not for me. It's for the Empire.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing that, they are clearly so loyal to him.
Yeah.
And a lot of this Imperial remnant is just like, well, once we get Thrawn back. But Thrawn seems to have this greater idea of like the Empire and the protection of the galaxy and this greater mission that's not about him personally. And I thought that was just like an interesting glimpse into his character.
Yeah, I don't really know quite what to make of it. I think part of the magic trick that Thrawn is pulling is that like it actually is all for him, and he kind of knows that. But he puts it up to this. If you like anybody in power, if you put it up to this bigger cause than yourself, you're both seen as humble while still maintaining all your power. Sure. So if it's all about you, then you become this kind of egomaniac. But if it's all about kind of the cause, then it's like, oh, okay, there's more to this, we're fighting for a bigger reason, and it's a little bit more inspiring, I think, which is, again, tactical, Thrawn. So.
It is, and even talking about what we mentioned last episode, that he is open to listen to and hear out other people's ideas is probably another way that he wins over people's loyalty, which I think he has to do, considering he so often is just like, acceptable losses. That's fine. We can throw more at that. No problem. You know what? Those guys didn't make it back. 2 demerits for their captain. Let's keep it pushing.
Also, I thought the demerits and all, like, I think that's a thing in the arm, and like, it's a thing in the obviously in the armed services, but like, I don't think I've ever heard that happen in Star Wars. It's like, no, you're relieved of your post, or you're dead, or you're cannon fodder. It's like, it's never like
these 2 captains
2
are on the
demerits
train
for
duty.
you.
Yeah. For their pilots not succeeding in an impossible situation.
Yeah,
tough look for the captains. The Jedi crew arrive, and we see that the Chimera is docking with the Eye of Sion, like an enormous hyperspace ring. They charge in, and Thrawn opens fire with a bombardment, but they are able to dodge the blaster fire, and as a group, use the Force to open the front gate to get inside the Imperial base. I think we give Sabine another half point here on the use the Force scale.
Yeah, like, we don't know how much she did or didn't do on that, but I thought the effects on the scene looked really good. The explosions, the sound design. I mean, the explosions, everything was really cool. They're raining hellfire on them, and I liked how it wasn't like normal Star Wars, where it's like they somehow shoot on either side of them the whole time. It was like they were, they're going through them sometimes. It was just, it was very clearly almost getting them, which I thought was good.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Great, like fun chase scene.
Yeah.
Inside, the night troopers are waiting, and our trio of heroes has no trouble working together to dispatch them. Ezra in particular shows off his lightsaber abilities. However, the Great Mothers make good on their blessings and raise the night troopers back from the dead, and zombified night troopers give the Jedi much more trouble than before.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the zombie stormtroopers, Keith?
Night Sister stuff. I love it. I love that it was reanimated night troopers. I feel like, tipping that a little bit to what happens later on, it seems like these are not the only reanimated members of the army here. So I loved it. I thought it was a great twist, and fun to see them kind of deal with that. And I like the idea that the stormtroopers are terrible shots, but they just keep coming, and they just keep getting back up. And I think that's a kind of interesting problem for them. And I liked it. I thought it was cool. I mean, it's fun.
I will say this is I can't think of another time I saw stormtroopers on screen and thought, oh no.
Yeah.
This is like one of the first times they've been intimidating, I feel like, as a force, and that idea of like there's so many of them and they just keep getting back up.
They're zombie. I mean, it's like the zombie thing.
They
It's
don't stop.
Like they're, even if they're slow and they can't shoot very good, like at some point they just keep keep going. There's more and more of them. That's great.
Yeah, and obviously we mentioned this last episode, but if you like this kind of stuff, definitely check out Clone Wars. There's a lot more zombie type things going on with the Night Sisters. Definitely their MO. They fight their way through the horde and block them with blast doors, but Thrawn pulls another favor and asks Elsbeth, "Hey, need you to do me another solid. Need you to stay behind and hold the heroes off long enough for us to make our escape." She descends and meets up with Ahsoka for a rematch with her Talzin blade as Ezra and Sabine run ahead to catch the Chimera. What are your thoughts on this rematch? A grudge match,
Yeah.
since season 2 of The Mandalorian, we're seeing them cross swords again. What'd you make of it?
I don't think it was good as the first one, but I thought it was fun. I was kind of curious to see if like Morgan had gotten any cool special powers from her, markings and stuff like that. Didn't seem like that happened.
Seemingly no.
Loved the style of combat. I really liked their fighting. I thought it was really well done. Very difficult fight scene, long fight scene for them as well.
Yeah.
But the final kill, like stroke that she made through on with the 2 blades through her chest, that was like awesome. I was very satisfying at the end. And yeah, I liked it. That was good.
Yeah, I agree. It was, and I felt like they had a good. We have a lot. I mean, we'll definitely have a lot more to talk about with these fights and one-offs that one-on-ones that they have. But it was cool to see. What I was worried about, and this happened, is just like after Elsbeth had this like upgrade, I was like, she can't just kill her like that.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciated about this is the kind of the back and forth, the ebbs and flows of the fight.
The slicing of the lightsaber in half at one point. And
the fact that this did seem to make her a bit more of a formidable opponent, at least to some degree.
Right.
That gave Ahsoka a little bit of trouble. But as mentioned, Ahsoka struggles with the new souped up Elsbeth. Sabine and Ezra meet their match against a pair of zombified death troopers.
those things are wild.
Whew, yes. Sabine emptied a clip into one of their faces, and he just took it like a champ and kept on coming.
And Ezra put a lightsaber through one in the middle of them. It's great.
Didn't care.
Yeah.
They are both disarmed with their lightsabers, and as Sabine is being choked out, she reaches out and is able to summon her lightsaber with the Force. Finally, a true solo Force moment for Sabine, and she impales the zombie head with it. It turns into a 2v1 with Ezra as he recalls his lightsaber as well and decapitates his opponent. What did you think of this moment with Sabine finally using the Force on her own?
I thought it was a little predictable. The second she gets up there and she raises her hand, you're like, oh, she's totally gonna get it with the Force. But I love the double tap through the head with Kylo Ren style. I think they could have made more of a meal out of it, of her using the Force for the first time. I think Ezra could have been in danger, or like there could have been as opposed to her getting choked out, like maybe it's Ezra and she has to, the only hope maybe she sacrifices. I don't know. There could have been more of a moment out of it.
Yeah.
I thought the moment itself was fine. So, no demerits, but
No demerits for Sabine here.
But it's my main issue comes in a few moments. So in relation to this,
okay.
I also want to say about the Ahsoka fight. I really enjoyed their kind of nods to samurai and sword fighting and the different styles that they did. I'm not familiar with them, obviously, but you could tell there was a lot of influence from that world in the fighting style in general, which I thought was really interesting and kind of carried through the whole series, which is kind of a testament to the choreographers and all that sort of stuff. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah. For me, when it came to this moment particularly, what I did enjoy it. I can totally see what you're saying as far as like when it's in that moment, you're like, of course this is going to happen because I'm not about to watch Sabine get choked out here against a stone block. But what I liked about it is it felt very much like maybe a bit of a callback, a bit of a rhyme, if you will, within Star Wars of Luke first using the Force on screen in Empire Strikes Back as he's hanging upside down, reaching for his lightsaber and calling for it. Now, certainly, the argument can be made the first time he uses the Force is when he blew up the Death Star,
right?
Getting the proton torpedoes into that exhaust port as Obi-Wan tells him to fire without his targeting computer. But what's an interesting part of Luke's journey as a Jedi, especially in Empire, is when you see him, every time you see Luke using the Force successfully in The Empire Strikes Back, he's upside down or in some sort of like distress.
Interesting.
And I think that lends itself a little bit to the moment I mentioned last episode of Kanan saying she has these walls and
Yeah.
she's putting so much up and she's not opening herself up, and it finally takes this moment of desperation where she's finally like, I'm gonna open myself up to this. I'm at, like, it has to be the moment, obviously, for so many reasons, but that moment of struggle, and like, there's no walls to be put up. If you put up walls at this point, you're done.
Yeah,
it's truly
you're done.
desperation,
Yeah,
and she's going on instinct and she's going on reflex. And I thought that moment worked for me very much. And just a little touch that I really liked is when she did the double tap to the brain with the thing, the eyes lighting up green.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
The stormtrooper eyes light up green inside, just like very briefly in the helmet, which I thought was just a cool little touch.
Yeah.
So Sabine and Ezra try to run and catch the Chimera. The night troopers blow through the blast doors and swarm around Ahsoka, forcing her to run to the top of the tower, with Elsbeth slowly, confidently following. On the roof, the Chimera is pulled too far away for either of them to jump, and Sabine tells Ezra to jump as far as he can across. She will force push him the rest of the way so that when he lands, he can force pull her across. He's nervous, but when he makes the jump, she's able to get him the rest of the way. He calls out to Sabine to join him, but she sees her master struggling to hold off her enemies behind her and is faced with another decision. Based on what you said earlier, I think you have something to say about this moment.
I did not like this part.
Okay.
I did not like this part because she just used the Force for the first time. Mm-hmm. And now she's throwing a human being over a football field into another ship. To me, the idea that she would be able to do that or have the wherewithal is just one step too far. And that she would trust herself that much to do that in this moment just seems kind of just too much of a reach for me. Also, the way he like double jumped in midair there, I found the mechanics of that very odd. It was like he almost stopped midair, and then I don't know. It just all kind of felt very wonky to me. And you know, if there was another, it's a kind of a callback to this happens in Rebels. Ezra gets thrown at some point, and like I can appreciate that aspect of it. Either make the ship closer or some form of like he jumps and he's about to fall, and then Sabine pushes him up the last maybe a foot or two. Great. But to make him like go halfway and then she pushes him, like double jumps him, like I'm just like, guys, we just started using the Force. We can't throw I mean, that's a lot of, I don't know. To me, it just didn't track.
I don't want to say the opposite reaction, but I can see why this may be a stretch, but it didn't. It was a bend, not a break for me.
Okay.
For honestly, a lot of the reasons you just said.
Interesting.
In that, like, to me, he force jumps and gets 70% of the way, and she is able to then take it from there.
Okay.
And granted, she's not necessarily because I didn't see it as her throwing him the whole way or him double jumping as much as he was like, I'm going to go as far as I can with my own. And then from there, you can push me. That's how it seemed to work to me. To enough where I was just like, I can see that. Again, it's a bend, not a break for me, especially because you're in a situation where you're that desperate. You have so little options. What else are you going to do?
Right.
And granted, that's a situation that the script has put them in, right?
Right.
So like if you're going to, they have to do that because of that's just the way it's been written. But I didn't bump as much as that. I did watch that and think people are not going to like this. And I think maybe because it was so close together, maybe that was a bit of the reason.
That's part of it. It's less about the mechanics of the double jump and or whatever you want to call it, and like how close they were, whatever. It's more about she just was able to use the Force for the first time, and it took her so long. And like, it doesn't seem like the type of thing to me. At least this is my Force theory, where like the floodgates all of a sudden open and just like everything is great. I can use the Force as much as I want. It's like it requires practice and skill and concentration and some things that it just felt like she kind of flipped a switch, and I don't know, and that's just a preference thing. It's like there's no right answers or wrong answers here. It just didn't do it for me.
I get that, and I hear you about as far as like just because you can do one thing doesn't mean it should all just come to you all at once. Right. I do want to read a quote to you.
Okay, sure.
I do have a quote here.
Yeah.
The Force can be a trickle, a stream, a river, a flood for anyone who can sense it. Think of yourself as a door. The wider you open it, the more easily the force flows through you. Some people just start out with their door a bit more open, but any door can open wide. That was said by Luke Skywalker in The Rise of Kylo Ren, a comic book series, which again is not necessarily, a part of what a lot of people are experiencing when they read a Star Wars story.
Right.
But for me, I'm just like, okay, that at least is like a bit of a. We can see that this is, again, I'm very pro democratize the force. I'm
Yes.
very pro, like, if anybody takes the time to do it, they can do it.
Yes.
And I like that aspect and that idea quite a bit.
Yeah.
Again, it's a bend, not a break for me, but I'm not, this is not something that I'm going to quibble over so much that I'm like, it's a lot for her to have done all at once.
Listen, if it works for you, it works for you. I respect that. I'm a little bit more of I think really the baseline of it is that in my opinion there's a better way to achieve this same result, and it comes down to the choices that they make with the writing. It just felt very convenient. It just felt and I
that
wish,
I can absolutely see.
and I wish they had tried a little bit harder, or whatever it is. It worked a little bit different magic to try and make this scene earn this moment a little bit more. I think that's what it really comes down to. It's not going to make or break the show for me. But,
sure.
I think it's just about as polarizing. Or it's not as polarizing, but it's of the same polarizing measure that like Leia Force Supermaning,
which is a moment I am not a fan of.
Right.
Even though I love that movie, that is like, for many reasons, I'm just like, but oh God, I hate people surviving in open space. I don't like that. It makes me crazy. But all that to say, I agree. And maybe if they had been a bit more economical with their time in storytelling in these last couple episodes, as we agreed, the last one felt a bit like a filler.
Yep.
If there had been a bit more build up to this moment, a bit of a small step maybe in the last episode,
right,
that led to a bigger step here.
And maybe more,
maybe
like
it felt more, would have felt more natural.
Trick us with the music, or like give us a swell, or like a push in, or like some sort of it's happening. I don't know. As opposed to, okay, I'm going to throw you. I'm going to do this force trick that I've never done before, and like as we're going away, or at least play the stakes up. So it's like, I don't know what we're going to do, but I saw AHSOKA do this once, and like let's just try it. Well, what do you mean try it? Like, have you never done this before? Like some sort of acknowledgement of like where they're at, and there was none of that. So I will say this whole sequence when the ship's taking off and like they're fighting, they finally used, I think, which the thing is the strength of the prequels, and that is not, and it also is the strength of the old movies, which is extremely wide shots. When they swing back and you see the size of this ship, when you see the tower crumbling, when you see the raining hellfire, those to me sell the world of like, this is where we are in Star Wars. And to see them on that platform and looking up and like from the ship taking off, like I loved all that stuff, and I feel like we haven't really gone that wide very long recently. And I understand budgetary restrictions and the movies have a little bit more in that regard, but I really enjoyed that part of this particular show.
I agree. All those wide shots, even Ezra at that moment, in a second, we'll talk about it, kind of standing on the ship and looking down as this fight is continuing and seeing the flash of the lightsabers as his friends are fighting is just like, it is an affecting moment. And I feel like it does ground it a bit in that reality of like, oh yeah, you're seeing these things from a distance.
We're in a world. We're not in a box,
Yes. So Elsbeth pushes AHSOKA to the brink, destroying one of her lightsabers, as we mentioned, and taunting her that her cause is lost, that she will die here on Perdia alone. But she isn't. Sabine rejoins her master, and the two of them are able to fight off the night troopers and finally finish Elsbeth once and for all with a, nice little flourish. Does this moment do anything for Sabine's redemption in your eyes, that she comes back for AHSOKA here rather than going to join Ezra on the ship to make her own escape?
Yeah, it did something for me. I don't know that it was... I mean, I just go... I don't think it was the smartest, honestly. I think, like, yes, AHSOKA's been... it's tough for her to deal with all these people, but it's like, realistically, it'd be great if someone could go back with Ezra to kind of tell everybody what's going on and to figure it out together. But I appreciate the move to stay with her master, and I think it's kind of telling of the arc, and she's making a different choice to go with her instead of Ezra. And I was kind of very, I'd say, middle of the road about it. It wasn't like a wow moment for me, but it was cool to see her kind of final form Sabine with lightsaber in one hand and blast from the other, doing her thing. But yeah, honestly, it was kind of a okay, moment for me.
For me, it was a good start at least because
Yeah.
they made it look with the shot that she was getting ready to go run back onto the ship.
Yeah.
And honestly, my gut reaction in that moment is like, there's no way you're about to fucking leave her again. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way you're about to go do that. And
Yeah.
that, to me, honestly, would have damaged her character and decision making a lot
Yeah.
if she had gone with Ezra. I'm like, you can't, like, I think if she leaves Ahsoka here, Ahsoka is unequivocally dead.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think she can, in good
see that. I
conscience,
see that.
leave her behind. And the fact that even Ahsoka did stand by her and decided to respect her decision and what she did, I think motivated her in a lot of ways to then go back and stand by.
She wasn't being scolded. Yeah.
She stood by her master the way her master stood by her.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. Granted, I do think there's more that she needs to do to truly come back. To me, again, this is only a step in the right direction. She still has a lot of other good decisions to make to make up for some
or
of
rather, not bad decisions to make.
before she makes up for the catastrophically bad decisions she has made during the course of the show.
Yeah.
But I think to me, this was a good step. And I really appreciated them seeing them fight together, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it is fun. And once she, like I said, once she kind of came back, I was like, cool.
Yes. So the Great Mothers sense Elsbeth's death, and Thrawn is ready to just cut his losses. He orders the ship to open fire on the tower, just kill anybody left down there. Sabine and Ahsoka run off the ledge of the building, and Huyang's timing couldn't be better as the T6 picks them up and takes them away from the collapsing tower. They divert all their powers to the engine to give the Chimera chase, but Thrawn reaches out over the comms telling Ahsoka, "You're a worthy opponent just like your master, but the day's victory is mine." And with that, the Chimera hyperspace jumps back to its home galaxy. And we have an ultimately this is a victory for Thrawn.
Yeah.
You have to kind of look at this, and this is something we kind of talked about, throughout the series of just like, where does this fight end? Where does it go from here as we're talking about what could come next for Star Wars? And we were kind of both saying early on, we just didn't see a world where Thrawn doesn't get out of this.
Yeah.
Now that you're seeing it happen, did you have any thoughts on the fight? Finish of the fight.
I was kind of like, oh, here we go. Rob gets his downbeat episode or downbeat ending here.
Hey!
Like a little bittersweet.
My Empire Strikes Back.
Chalk one up on the board. Yeah. I mean, I liked this little kind of like, haha, we got you, and then booting off to space. I thought it was like we said. I think if they had ended it any other way at this point, up like if they had somehow caught up to that ship or whatever, I would have been like, oh boy. I think there was a moment, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, where Thrawn calls her like a Ronin.
He does, which was a bit weird.
Which I was like,
how do you know what that is? How do you know what that is, huh?
What's going on here?
Yeah. That moment stood out to me a little bit.
I kind of liked it. But I was kind of also a little bit of a head cock, being like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I believe he says maybe this place like this is somewhere a Ronin like you is supposed to belong.
Yeah.
Where you should be.
Yeah.
Also bye.
Also
gone.
And, but yeah, I was kind of like, okay, so we're gonna get an epilogue here. All right, let's see what happens, and then we, continue, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was hoping for this downbeat, and what I liked about this is I think there have been some somewhat valid criticisms for, Thrawn's effectiveness and strategy these last couple episodes. But I think what this illustrates is truly what he's been saying all along.
Yeah.
Is I have one goal.
Yeah.
My goal is to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
Yep. With all that cargo, whatever it is.
All that cargo, which we'll talk about that. But at every moment, he has Elsbeth saying, like, shouldn't we overwhelm them? Shouldn't we do more? Shouldn't we be sending more troops? You have all these people. You have a small army. Why aren't you using it? And because that's not his ultimate goal.
Right.
And I think, people have been talking about like, like he's been getting defeated. The night troopers are no more tougher than the stormtroopers. And I'm like, that's not really the point. I don't think Thrawn's goal was ever to wipe them out in one fell swoop. And if there ever was a time that he was going to do that, it was during the initial attack when Balin bailed.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like, well, considering the fact that he got out of here, we did okay. We got what we needed out of this. We delayed them enough that we will get out of here.
Yep.
Because I think what is in the forefront of his mind is like, yes, goal A is to get out of here, and I will do whatever I have to do that. Goal B is I have to have enough of a force when I get there to be effective.
Right.
And I can't be spending my resources willy-nilly just to beat down these people when honestly I don't even getting out of here is not the
There's
problem.
only X amount of TIE fighters in that ship that he's got.
Right.
So
When I get there, I have to impress all of the other Imperials with what I got enough
Right.
that they're all going to rally around my flag and we can, start to rebuild this empire. So Thrawn did what he needed to do. He spent the resources that were necessary, and he ultimately pulled out the victory that he needed.
yeah.
But yes, as you mentioned, this brings us to our epilogue. Ahsoka and Sabine return to the Noti. When they arrive, there is something else waiting for them there. The Morai, an owl-like bird closely associated with both Ahsoka and the light side of the Force.
Interesting. I was wondering what that was.
That is the Morai. We'll get into that in just a moment because...
Hedwig.
Yes. Elsewhere, we see that Shin finds refuge with a tribe of bandits, and even further still, Balin continues his quest for power and knowledge, finding an ominous statue of the father and son pointing him towards his destination. Now, the Morai, these two statues are all kind of tangled in this Mortis arc that we brought up a couple times throughout the series, and even in the last episode. And just to give a super brief rundown of what is a very complicated, like 3 or 4 episode arc on the Clone Wars. Mortis is this lost planet that essentially is impossible to find. It only appears to those that it deems worthy, essentially. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are brought there essentially as just a function of needing Anakin. And there are these 3 figures, the father, the brother, and the sister. The brother being the embodiment of the dark side of the Force, the sister being the embodiment of the light side of the Force, and the father being the balance between them, constantly keeping them both under control. And so the Morai is this symbol, kind of like Athena has her owl. The sister has the Morai. And during the plot of those episodes, Ahsoka is essentially killed, and the sister revives her by pouring her spirit into Ahsoka. And ever since then, the Morai follows Ahsoka around, appears to Ahsoka. In the episode The Jedi in season 2 of Mandalorian, you see the Morai kind of hanging out in the trees and flying over. You see the Morai show up in the World Between Worlds when Ahsoka's there, in Rebels. And so that moment, the fact that the Morai shows up right in that moment, just before we see Balin literally standing on a Lord of the Rings-esque statue.
Game of Thrones, you take your pick, yeah.
Of the father pointing out, it's like, this has got to be, obviously we don't know what they're going to end up doing with Balin after the passing of Ray Stevenson.
R.I.P.
But it kind of hints of what he wants.
Yeah.
Clearly what Balin wants is he mentions that he wants to be tapping into the beginning of things, the source of things, and true power. And what that means could potentially be trying to search for Mortis, trying to search for the true origins of the Force, and trying to capture whatever is left of the light side, the dark side, and the balance, and all of those people, and trying to harness that. Granted, that raises a lot more questions than it does answers.
Yep.
But hopefully that sheds a little light on what they were hinting at for people that have not necessarily watched the animated shows, that what his ultimate destination may be is truly the source of the Force.
The source of the Force.
And also how Ahsoka is tied into that because of her connection to the sister, and that maybe her and Balin's path are destined to continue to intertwine from here on out.
Yeah. Rob Fonda, everybody. Round of applause. That's great. That's great.
Appreciate it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I really like this idea. I was kind of thinking about, and I was wondering what your thoughts are on this, that they're leaving the questions so that they can obviously answer them later on.
Yeah.
And now with the passing of Ray Stevenson, I guess my question to you would be, if you're Kathy Kennedy and the Lucasfilm gang and Star Wars people, are you recasting this role? Are you writing it off to another storyline that you're just not picking it up? You're just kind of leaving it questions and for maybe an animated show or something like that? Or what are you doing?
Wow. Yeah, that is a very difficult question, and a question I was asking myself after watching this. My knee-jerk reaction is you got to recast.
Yeah, my knee-jerk reaction was Dumbledore.
I think it's very difficult because I think Ray Stevenson did such a good job. And yes, the character of Balin is interesting, but his portrayal and the weight he gave the character and what he brought to the role is so much of what made it interesting that it may be hard to just put somebody else in that position, and they are, I think, if they do that, that actor will be under a fair amount of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Which is just a difficult position to put somebody in. That being said, what they hinted at here was, I feel like, so large in its implications and what it could be leading to, that to dangle that thread in front of us and completely yank it away would just kind of be
sacrilegious almost.
And just like, how do you not follow through with this? I think if they were going to, I don't know, their hands are tied obviously with the reality of the situation. You want to tell these stories, but real life comes around every once in a while and things are just completely out of your control. Boo boo. But I think their hands are tied a little bit where they kind of have to do this. I did see some people online, speculating maybe they reunite with Shin in some way, and it's about following after him, and they are traveling in his footsteps and trying to kind of find where he went if he's disappeared, and they're trying to track him down. That may be a little matchy to literally what they did on the show.
Yeah,
they're searching for a lost planet with this character.
What?
But
Star Wars repeat itself? Come on.
I don't know about that.
Come on.
But I think they kind of have to bring this character back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's there's so much greatness that came out of the character itself. Arguably one of the more interesting people on the show, and it's going to be big shoes to fill. But if anybody's done it before, it's Star Wars. When it comes to people that are gone or repurposed or figured out a different way to do it or recast, or I hope they figure it out in a tactful way. And but as you said, it's never,
he falls down a cliff and breaks his face.
It's never going to be.
He has to wear a mask from there on out. I don't know.
Phantom of the Balin.
That's just a first draft idea.
Yeah, I got really excited when I saw him on that cliff, and also really sad at the same time.
Yes, agreed.
It was a bit of both.
I will say, it just any time throughout the series that we weren't spending time with Balin and Shin, I was just like, let's get back to what they are.
I think like the first chunk of most of this episode, I missed them.
I agree.
I'd say that was the one thing that was like really kind of not present in the conflict was them, and I get they had to hand it off and all that good stuff, but like when Shin popped up on screen, I was like, oh, okay, wait, what's gonna happen? And then it was kind of just a quick moment in the epilogue, and when she first held up her lightsaber, I was like, is she coming back to like join up with Ahsoka and Sabine? And it was like, nah, she's got her band of miscreants.
She likes red. She wants to hang out with the red armored folks.
Oh gosh.
They were missed in this episode, but hopefully we see them going forward.
Yeah.
So back on the Chimera, they reach their destination of Dathomir, which seems to be the base where they will reunite and reforge the Imperials. Still aboard the ship are all the precious cargo boxes that the Great Mother's asked to be loaded on as payment. What do you think what do you think we got? What are we dealing with here, Keith?
I think,
hit me with it,
that these are bodies. I think these are bodies of stormtroopers, of some people that the people at Dathomir are going to make into Night Sister stuff.
I agree.
I think that's what they are.
I think it's either, because even Ezra says earlier on when they're approaching the tower, he's just like, so do you have any intel on what this place is? And he's like, honestly, no. Thrawn got here, he rebuilt his ship, he woke up the Night Sisters, and it's really kind of been too dangerous since then. Right. So that makes me to believe that if there was some Night Sister slumbering here, this may have been like a tomb. And this is like their army of undead Night Sisters that they could then use as, again, to buttress their forces and really just
they just hook them up to whatever the Night Sister battery is on Dathomir, and then they're just like,
oh, now we're talking. We're tapped into some dark magic Night Sister stuff.
This is pod racing. So I was either thinking that or some combination of like weapons, or maybe they had a lot of money or something like that. It's something obviously of value. But I think it's bodies.
I think it's bodies too.
Very
coffin-like.
I don't know yet.
Bodies. On the home one, the New Republic soldiers draw blasters as Balin and Shin's ship docks and opens. They are understandably nervous when a night trooper emerges, but Chopper recognizes an old friend and wheels over to Ezra as he takes off the helmet and announces his return, much to Hera's surprise. Talking about reunions, Keith, hit me with it.
This sucked.
It was weird.
This sucked. It
was
was
weird.
the dumbest. And I'm going off here. But like the second that ship lands and a stormtrooper walks or dark trooper, you know exactly who it is.
Right,
Like,
of course.
why are we letting why make this a whole thing? Like I was just, and then he says Hera. It's it's just like the reactions were weird. We took too long. The cut was weird. Like everything about this was just a big old whiff, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. This is, I can like maybe have forgiven the first part of it because I agree. It's a lot of unnecessary smoke and mirrors. Like, why is he even still wearing the helmet at that point?
There's no point. Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
He's like he had to wear it to sneak onto the ship, but I get it if he's still wearing the rest of the gear. It's like, oh, that's how he got it. You don't even need to have him have the armor on. Like it's
Not
a little
really,
detail.
no.
He just like walks off the ship and it's Ezra. Like
Ezra does
cool.
have a long history of dressing up as stormtroopers, I suppose. But
it does, and like you when you're coming into that ship, it's like you're gonna talk on the comms. Like
they're gonna say, "Who is this?"
Yeah, it's just
I agree. That was a bit clunky.
Everything about this screams this. Some writer had maybe it was Dave. Sorry, Dave. The idea of like, wouldn't it be cool if he walks off and it's a stormtrooper, but it's Ezra, and then they like constructed this thing around it as opposed to. I don't know.
I think they tried to make a bigger moment out of it than it needed to be.
But they did not stick that landing moment.
But they didn't. And to me, the moment that stood out more than anything is we've talked about like holding too long on a cut or on a shot or a moment. And them just like kind of staring at each other, open mouthed from across the docking bay for what felt like
reunions, man. They just
30 seconds.
At least.
I was just like, where's the emotion? Why doesn't she run over and hug him or like have some sort of reaction other than just like
blasters down,
blaster down Ezra and just like stare? Like, where's the joy?
Yeah.
And that moment just felt like
where's
where's
AHSOKA? Where's Sabine? Like it's just there's like either make it like emotional, like he walks off the ship, smile, joy, done. Like get out, like get in, get out, or make it a whole moment. Don't do this, whatever that was. To
me, it smacked of like last shot of the day. We got it. Everybody, that's a wrap. Let's get out of here. Let's go.
Like
home.
we only have one more day.
It was a very weird moment for a reunion that people have been thinking about for a long time.
And somehow Ezra got a haircut. I don't know on what ship or how, but he got a haircut.
I was wondering about that. I wondered if that was the case. His hair did seem shorter. I was thinking about that.
Maybe it was a reshoot day, and they just they couldn't fix. I don't know. I truly don't know. But it was everything was wrong with that scene. They almost just should have.
I could absolutely see that being something they tacked on. It's just like, oh shit, you know what we didn't do? We didn't shoot Ezra. Oh my god, hold on, we got to call everybody back.
Like I appreciate the fact that yes, Shin buzzed him a little bit at that, but it doesn't match his hair on the platform. Like so, it's like somehow in hyperspace he just found a barber on board.
I don't know.
Oh, jeez,
it was a bit weird. I agree that scene didn't work for me.
All right, well, enough of railing on that.
I don't mean to. I don't mean to.
It's just kind of fun. Sorry,
it was. On Perdia though, Ahsoka and Sabine settle in for a long haul with the Noti. Ahsoka says that it is time to let go, time for them to move on. They are exactly where they are supposed to be, with a new path in front of them. As Ahsoka heads back, Sabine swears she sees something in the distance, but writes it off as shadows. Ahsoka looks out as well for a moment before they return to camp, and with that, the cameras turn for us to see that the ghost of Anakin Skywalker looking on and briefly smiling before the episode in the season comes to a close. And that's where we leave off here on this season of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Hey.
I like the ending with Force Ghost Anakin. I thought it was fun. Again, don't love how we got to that moment. That scene with the two of them was very clunky, and I didn't like the way they shot it and was written, blah, 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 whatever. But I liked the sentiment of Force Ghost Anakin and Sabine starting to get that sense. Again, that's the breadcrumbs. That's what we're looking for here. She's starting to learn a little bit.
She's
not
attuning,
throwing people across football fields, but she's she's starting to feel something.
Yeah.
I was curious. Did you like that the beam of light that was in the background there?
Yeah.
What do you think that was the trail?
I think
from
that
the
was a
hyperspace?
SpaceX launch, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did hear Elon was into Perdia stuff.
I assumed that was. I assumed that was the hyperspace trail from.
That's what I thought.
The
Yeah.
Eye of
Okay.
Sion
Okay.
taking off.
That's what I thought. I'm glad that Hayden Christensen got the last frame on the show.
Yeah, good for him. Cut him a check.
Yeah, cut him a check. Cut the guy a big old check. I thought he did great this whole show. I just wanted to say that, by the
Agreed.
way. I think one of the best characters on the show I enjoyed the most was Hayden doing Hayden things. And I think if anybody had any doubts that he is actually quite a talented actor, I think this firmly put that theory in the ground. So I just wanted to say that was a big enjoyment, and happy that it landed.
I
for a
have
lot of the show.
absolutely loved the Hayden Christensen, rehabilitation throughout Obi-Wan and the show. I think he was great on both shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's been really good to see him come back. There's been quite a few actors that have not necessarily had the best experience working on a Star Wars project, and I'm sure he is one of them. I'm sure he has experienced some dark times surrounding that, and
Yeah, there's a few, unfortunately.
to see him getting emotional with the love he was getting, both for his return for Obi-Wan and people being so excited to have him back for this, it's just like it feels really good. To see that.
Yeah, it's a great redemption arc in that
Very much so.
mirroring of his character in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we are now officially done with the season. What are we looking forward to for the future of Star Wars now? I mean, we talked before we started here that the next series that's coming out, not sure if we're going to do a show on it, but is Acolyte, which they dropped the trailer for, which looks wild.
I'm very excited for Acolyte.
So yeah, what are you excited for, Rob, and what do you hope they kind of comes next in the Star Wars world?
Yeah, so Acolyte we know is coming out. As far as the next show that's coming out is going to be Acolyte, which takes place I think 100 or so years before the events of Episode 1. So this is one of the first times we're going to really see something prior to the Skywalker saga.
Yeah,
and it's about the rising of the dark side during this time of power for the Jedi, and based on what I've seen from that trailer, I think there's going to be a lot of great fights. I think there's going to be a lot of fun action, a lot of cloak and dagger stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get into some really nitty gritty stuff, maybe something more along the lines of Andor than
Andor. Anything more Andor is I'm here for.
Than necessarily something for this, which also check the tapes on Heard the Nerds. I called Andor was going to be good.
Yes, you did.
I said
Yes,
Andor's
you did.
going to be good.
Chalk
And
a
it
big
was.
old +1 on the board for Rob.
it.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. And then speaking of Andor, we have Andor season 2 coming up after that. And
cannot wait for that.
Very, very excited. Got to get my boy K2SO in there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite droids. I love K2SO.
Yeah,
he's so cool. I think he's so funny. Alan Tudyk is great in general.
Truly.
But those things obviously I'm looking forward to. We have that Star Wars open world game.
Oh my God. Yeah. That
coming
looks
up in the
really,
near future
really
as well.
exciting. Yeah.
I say near future. Let me do a quick Google foo here and see how near future that is.
Yeah. I think Andor's going to be a little bit of a minute, but I would encourage everybody, if you haven't watched Andor, to really it's a totally different breed of Star Wars show. And for me, it's the best thing that's been out since the original 3. So, but all of that is very exciting to me. I'm very interested to see if we get a second season of AHSOKA as well, or if this is going to tee right up into the Filoni-verse movie potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is all dependent on when the actors' strike is over. Of
course.
And shout out to all of our friends on the picket lines for that as well. But yeah, so what did we find out about?
So the name of the game, Star Wars Outlaws, will be March 2024. So I think, probably in between maybe these projects coming out.
You know what's wild is that's like 6 months away.
That is wild. That is wild. I have so many other games I've bought and not played to finish before I do that.
Yeah. I mean, I still haven't finished the second Star Wars game, so.
Oh, it's so good.
That's what I hear.
When that came out, that was just like, I have to just like tunnel vision complete this. And that's honestly kind of where I'm at with Baldur's Gate at this point. Like I have to do this. But those I'm very excited for, all those projects we mentioned. And of course, Mando season 4, which I'm sure will blend into this, this as these shows are kind of building this momentum. Talking even about like our overall thoughts for the show we just watched, this was a show that I liked. I think I don't know if I could say that I loved it.
Yep.
I think I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And there were some really great highs and also some questionable moments and choices that were made. But it peaked a little bit in the middle for me. Mm-hmm. But I feel like at least I liked a lot of this episode.
Yeah.
This last episode, and I like where it left off. And certainly I don't mind that it leaves on a bit of a down note and a loss for our heroes, because this is the first step in a tier level story that they're developing, and I'm excited about where they're going to take it
Yeah.
and where it can go, and what we'll see from these characters going forward. So I enjoyed the show. I think overall it was a success. It was really, really cool to see these characters in live action, and yeah, I am genuinely excited to see where Filoni takes the story, and how much this, it's only a matter of time before we have to get some of these main rebels back in action. I don't know that Thrawn can come back and the Imperials come back and Luke doesn't make an appearance.
Right.
That has to be something. I mean, we talked about Balin and Ahsoka, but like Thrawn is back in the galaxy, and I'm sure Din and Luke and Zeb and all those other people are very much going to have to be dealing with the repercussions of that.
Yeah. I kind of had a very similar thought to you, and I like the show. Will I say that I loved it? No, I loved moments of it for sure.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
feel like the bones of the show are really good.
Agreed.
And season 1 of any TV show is rarely a home run or a grand slam or even a base hit. And so to me, it's at this point, like many shows I've found, where your season 1 is right. You're right on that line of 50-50. Like it could turn into something really, really great, and it could fall off the edge.
Sure.
So I felt like that was kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. A lot of the show. Like I said, there were kind of some consistent problems throughout it, and some consistent good things throughout it. And I am hopeful for the future of the show, and like I said, the bones of Rosario Dawson, of Hu Yang, of Balin, of Thrawn, like those, and the Night Sister stuff were really great. Unfortunately, there are some big weaknesses, though. I think Sabine's character, a big weakness, and our kind of backfill of what's going on in the universe, maybe some of their weaker points. So I am hopeful, but remains to be seen if we get to where we're all kind of raving about Ahsoka the way we were all raving about Mandalorian. So, and again, it's just, like I said, it's very hard to make television shows in general, and to make a Star Wars one with this loaded of a character and a backstory is hats off to everyone on the creative team who made the show happen. We really, really enjoyed watching and commenting here. Rob, it's been a pleasure to be sitting next to you and our friend Cam. Shout out.
Getting a bit of a tremor in the force here. I'm getting a message from Cam.
Okay.
He has his thoughts for me.
Okay.
On this final episode.
Just channel your inner Cameron.
Let me see. Overall, great episode. But it isn't really a finale because they don't wrap any of the story up. Very much a cliffhanger, which I don't mind as long as we pick up with everyone in the movie. I wish they'd given us a little bit more Balin, only because we'll never be able to find out what he was after outside of a comic book or maybe nitpicks. They totally got caught with their pants down when the fighters came through. No shields on the ship? ? No blocking tie blast like before? ? These were scenes that they just left off at the end, like Ezra's escape. There were scenes that they just left off at the end, like Ezra's escape from Thrawn's ship. Like, did he get any intel? We just cut to him on the stolen ship. Was anybody aware of him doing that? ? Likes. Zombie stormtroopers are dope. It looks like they may be kind of an army of Thrawn is trying to amass. Shot at the end kind of looks a lot like coffins. I like the scene with Ezra building a new lightsaber and his back and forth with Hu Yang. It'll be interesting to see how Sabine and Ahsoka get off this planet they're now stranded on. Maybe Sabine will come back with some more training. I like seeing the growth from them splitting up to her staying behind to save Ahsoka. Really looking forward to the scaling up of the story into a movie, given how big they made the show feel with the environment and new characters. I hope they grow Shin's character more, and glad they didn't have her time cut short just because she is a villain right now. As a continuation of Rebels, it's fantastic as a show. On its own, I think it doesn't surpass the first season of Mando, though. But as someone who already is going to consume as much Star Wars content as I can, I loved it. Is what he said. That is the general message I'm getting from Cam.
You must be exhausted.
Oh, I'm so tired.
Wow, that's
like Grogu. I need to take a force nap.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, that about wraps it up here for us, folks. Rob, it's been a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for being here. To Kara in the booth, big thank you. Cameron,
Thank you, Kara.
Congratulations again. And to you at home, our listeners and the people who have been supporting us, thank you so much for just listening and indulging us, really, with our meanderings of Star Wars, because we love to do it. We love to be here. So thank you very much. And we'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.